You were sitting in the way back, the one that faced backwards. You were 7 years old and your knees were pressed against the tailgate and the road was unrolling behind you like a gray ribbon. The cars behind you were getting smaller and your parents were so far away in the front seat, they might as well have been in another country. That was the station wagon. And the way back was the best seat in any car that has ever been built. Before we dive in, hit subscribe and drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. The way back. The backward-facing third-row seat in the back of an American station wagon was the single greatest place a child could be in the 1960s and the 1970s. You were facing the wrong direction. You could not see where you were going. You could only see where you had been. And that was the whole point. You were not riding in the car the way your parents were riding in the car. You were riding in your own world. A world where the highway stretched out behind you and the cars following your family got closer and then fell back, and the truck drivers were right there 6 feet from your face, separated by nothing but a tailgate window and a prayer. You made faces at them. You stuck your tongue out. You waved. When the trucker saw you and pulled his air horn, the sound was so loud and so close that you jumped, and your brother jumped, and you both laughed until your stomachs hurt. Your mother's voice came from the front seat saying, "Stop bothering the truck drivers." You did not stop. You never stopped, because the way back was your kingdom. And what happened in the kingdom stayed in the kingdom. Your parents could not see you back there. They could not reach you. The third row was approximately a football field from the front seat, and by the time your father's voice traveled that distance, it had lost all authority. You were free, you were 7, and the world was rolling past in reverse at 60 miles an hour, and it was perfect. The road trip. The cooler was between your mother's feet in the front passenger seat. It had sandwiches in wax paper and hard-boiled eggs and a thermos of coffee for your father and cans of soda for the kids that you were not allowed to open until after you crossed the state line. Your mother had a paper map spread across her lap the size of a tablecloth, and she was navigating by landmarks and highway signs and intuition. Sometimes she got it wrong. Your father said that he thought she had said to turn left. She said that she had said right. Nobody spoke for 11 miles. There were no screens, no tablets, no phones, no GPS. You read the backs of cereal boxes until you had memorized every word. You played I Spy until everything had been spied. You counted license plates from different states and kept a list on the back of a gas station receipt. You punched your brother every time you saw a Volkswagen Beetle. He punched you back. Your mother's arm came flying over the seat like a toll gate coming down at a parking garage. That was the end of that for approximately 4 minutes. Your father drove 12 hours straight. He stopped for gas twice. He stopped for lunch at a picnic table at a rest area. Your mother laid out the sandwiches on a checkered cloth. Your father stretched his back. The dog ran in circles on the grass. You ate your sandwich standing up because you had been sitting for 6 hours and you could not sit for 1 more second. Then everybody got back in the car. Your father asked how many hours to go. Your mother looked at the map and said about 6. Your father pulled onto the highway. You climbed back into the way back, and the road started rolling again. The wood paneling. Every station wagon in America had it. Fake wood grain panels on the sides made of vinyl that was glued to the steel and peeled at the corners after 3 summers in the sun. It was not real wood. It had never been real wood. Your parents knew it was not real wood. The neighbors knew it was not real wood, but it looked like a piece of furniture rolling down the street, and that was the whole point. The wood paneling made the station wagon look warm, domestic, respectable. It said, "This is a family and we are doing fine, and we take vacations and our children are in the back." The Ford Country Squire with the fake wood panels and the chrome trim parked in the driveway of a split-level house on a tree-lined street in 1968 was the most American image that has ever existed. More American than apple pie, more American than baseball. The station wagon in the driveway with the wood panels catching the afternoon sun and the sprinkler going on the lawn and the kids running through the water. That was the whole country in a single photograph. The Country Squire, if you close your eyes and someone says station wagon, you see a Ford Country Squire. You might not know the name, but you see the car, long, low, the fake wood running down the sides, the chrome bumpers, the roof rack on top loaded with luggage tied down with bungee cords, the V8 under the hood that made a sound when your father started it in the morning that rattled the windows in the garage. The Country Squire was 19 feet long and weighed almost 5,000 pounds and got about 8 miles to the gallon, and nobody cared because gasoline was 30 cents and the highway went to California. It had 3 rows of seats, 9 people. The front bench held 3 adults, the middle bench held 3 more, and the way back held 3 kids facing backwards watching the world disappear. In 1966, Ford put in the magic door gate. The rear gate could swing open to the side like a door or fold down flat like a truck tailgate. Your father used it as a workbench in the driveway. Your mother used it as a shelf at the grocery store while she loaded bags. Ford sold over 100,000 Country Squires every single year through the 60s and 70s. They called themselves the Wagon Master. They were not exaggerating. The tailgate. The tailgate was not just for loading groceries. The tailgate was a way of life. You folded it down flat and it became a bench at the Little League game. You sat on it with your legs dangling while your brother was at bat, and your mother sat in a lawn chair next to the car, and your father coached third base, and the cooler was open on the ground, and the sun went down behind the outfield fence. At the drive-in on a Saturday night, your father backed the wagon into the spot and folded the tailgate down. You and your brother and sister lay on sleeping bags in the cargo area with the speaker hanging on the window and the movie playing on the screen 200 feet away. Mosquitoes came in through the gap between the tailgate and the roof, and you fell asleep before the second feature started. On the 4th of July, your family drove to the field where the fireworks were, and your father backed the wagon in and dropped the tailgate. You sat in a row watching the sky explode in red and white and blue. The tailgate shook with every boom. Your little sister covered her ears and the dog hid under the middle seat. The tailgate was a front porch, a picnic table, a grandstand, a bed. It was wherever you needed a flat surface and a place to sit. The station wagon was always there and the tailgate was always ready. No seat belts. You have to understand what it was like. There were no car seats for children. There were no booster seats. There were no laws requiring seat belts for rear passengers in most states until the 1980s. You sat on your mother's lap in the front seat when you were 2. You rolled around on the floor of the cargo area when you were 4. You stood on the transmission hump between the front seats to see over the dashboard when you were 5. And by the time you were 7, you were in the way back doing somersaults between the wheel wells while your father took the exit ramp at 40 miles an hour. Safety was your mother's arm flying across the front seat when your father hit the brakes. That was the seat belt. That was the airbag. That was the entire child restraint system of the United States of America in 1971. And somehow you survived. You look back now and your mind cannot process how any of this was allowed, but at the time, nobody questioned it because that was just how it was. You got in the car and the kids were loose in the back like cargo that could talk, and you lived to tell the story, which is more than your mother's nerves can say, the sounds. The V8 at idle in the driveway on a cold morning. A low rumble that vibrated through the floorboards and into your feet. The click, click, click of the turn signal that sounded like a metronome keeping time with the road. the AM radio, tuned to one station for 700 miles because nobody wanted to reach over and change it while your father was concentrating. The hum of the tires on the highway that changed pitch when you crossed a bridge. The thump of the tailgate closing, which sounded like a bank vault sealing shut. The wind through the wing window that your father cracked open 2 inches because the air conditioning was broken and the back seat smelled like dog. And your father's voice cutting through all of it. Everybody in the car. He stood at the front door of the motel or the grandparents' house or the rest area, and he counted heads, and he said at once, "Everybody in the car." And everybody got in the car, and the doors closed, and the V8 caught, and the station wagon pulled out of the parking lot, and the trip continued. 1 in 5. Between 1940 and 1960, the number of American families with 3 children doubled. The number with 4 children quadrupled. Sedans could not hold them. Station wagons went from 3% of all cars sold in America in 1950 to 17% by 1960. Nearly 1 in 5 cars on the road was a station wagon. Every manufacturer made one. Ford had the Country Squire. Chevrolet had the Kingswood and the Caprice. Buick had the Estate. Oldsmobile had the Vista Cruiser with skylights in the roof. Pontiac had the Grand Safari. Mercury had the Colony Park. Chrysler had the Town and Country. They were everywhere, in every driveway, in every church parking lot, in every campground from Maine to California. The station wagon was not a type of car. It was the car. The only car that mattered if you had children and a dog and a vacation and a life. Then Clark Griswold got into one. In 1983, National Lampoon made a movie called Vacation. Chevy Chase played Clark Griswold, a suburban father who drives his family from Chicago to a theme park in California in a station wagon so ugly it became one of the most famous movie cars in history. The Wagon Queen Family Truckster, metallic pea paint which the crew called Baby asterisk green, fake wood everywhere, 8 headlights, a hood-mounted gas cap, an airbag made from a trash bag. It was a 1979 Ford Country Squire, modified to be the ugliest car ever built, and it was hilarious, and it was devastating, because the movie did something that no oil crisis and no emission standard could do. It made the station wagon a joke. Clark Griswold was a dork, and his car was a dork's car, and every baby boomer who grew up in the way back of a Country Squire laughed at the movie and then went out and bought a minivan. The Dodge Caravan came out in 1984, 1 year after Vacation. The boomers, who had spent their childhoods in the way back of their parents' wagon, decided they did not want to look like their parents. They wanted something new. Something that did not have fake wood panels and a V8 that got 8 miles to the gallon. Something that was not their father's car. The minivan took the families, the SUV took everyone else. The Ford Explorer and the Chevy Suburban and the Toyota RAV4 offered the space of a station wagon with the image of adventure. You were not a suburban parent in an SUV. You were an explorer. You were rugged. You were going off-road, even though the closest you ever got to off-road was the gravel parking lot at the soccer field. The station wagon could not compete with that. It could not compete with an image. The Country Squire was discontinued in 1990 after 40 years. The Chevy Caprice estate was gone by 1991. The last full-size American station wagons, the Buick Roadmaster and the Chevy Caprice, were discontinued in 1996. And the body style that had carried every American family for 40 years was gone. But here is what nobody says. The SUV is a station wagon. The crossover is a station wagon. The minivan is a station wagon. Every family vehicle sold in America today does exactly what the Country Squire did in 1968. It carries a family and their stuff from one place to another. The only difference is the name and the height and the fact that nobody sits in a backward-facing third row watching the world roll away behind them. The station wagon did not die. It changed its name. It got lifted 4 inches off the ground, and it stopped being honest about what it was. The Country Squire never pretended to be anything other than a family car. It had wood panels on the sides and a V8 in the front and 9 seats and a tailgate. And it said, "I am a station wagon and I carry families and I am not ashamed of it." The SUV says, "I am an adventure vehicle and I could go anywhere and do anything," even though it will never leave the pavement, and the most rugged thing it will ever carry is a bag of mulch from Home Depot. The station wagon was honest, the SUV is not, and that is the real reason the station wagon died. Not because it stopped working, because America stopped wanting to be honest about what it needed. Falling asleep. The best part of every trip was the end. It was dark. The highway had gone from 4 lanes to 2 lanes to a country road. The headlights of the cars behind you had thinned out to nothing. Your brother was asleep on one side of the way back, your sister was asleep in the middle row, and the dog was asleep on the cargo floor. The only sounds were the tires on the road, and the AM radio turned so low only your parents could hear it. You were lying on your side on the bench seat with your jacket as a pillow, the vibration of the car rocking you. You were trying to stay awake because you wanted to see the house, but you could not keep your eyes open. The last thing you saw was the red tail lights of the car ahead blurring into streaks, and then you were gone. And the next thing you knew, you were being carried. Your father's arms were under you. Your face was against his shoulder. The night air was cold. You could hear the front door opening. You could smell the house. He carried you up the stairs, put you in your bed, and pulled the blanket over you. You were home. You do not remember the drive. You do not remember arriving. You remember being carried. And that is the memory that stays, not the highway. Not the Grand Canyon, not the wood paneling or the V8 or the tailgate. The memory that stays is your father carrying you from the way back of the station wagon into the house at midnight because you fell asleep 3 states ago and he did not wake you up. He just carried you. The last ride. Your father pulled the station wagon into the driveway for the last time sometime in the mid-1980s. You were in college or you had already moved out, and the wagon had 200,000 miles on it, and the fake wood was peeling, and the tailgate squeaked, and the V8 engine burned a quart of oil every 1,000 miles. He traded it in for something smaller, a sedan, or later a minivan. And the wagon went to the dealer lot, and then to the auction, and then to someone else's driveway, and then to a junkyard, and then it was gone. And you did not think about it. You did not miss it. You were 22 years old, and you had your own car and your own life, and the station wagon was your childhood, and your childhood was over. But now you are 65 and you see a Country Squire at a car show, and the wood paneling is perfect and the chrome is polished and the tailgate folds down. You stand there looking at it and you can smell the vinyl seats and the cooler and the exhaust and the dog and the wax paper from the sandwiches. You are 7 years old again, sitting in the way back watching the world roll away behind you, and your brother is next to you, and your parents are impossibly far away in the front seat. And the truck driver just pulled his air horn and you are laughing so hard your stomach hurts and nobody has told you to stop yet. If you rode in the way back, tell me what kind of wagon it was. If you made faces at the truck drivers, tell me if they honked. If your mother's arm was your seatbelt, tell me how fast she was. If you fell asleep in the cargo area and your father carried you inside, tell me how old you were. And if you saw a Country Squire at a car show last summer and stood there longer than you expected, tell me what you remembered. I read every single comment.